Tonight under the lights here at this Marina Bay Street Circuit. For the fourth qualifying session in a row, the two Saubers were the slowest cars, Joe Guan Yu and Valtteri Bottas. Ahead of these two, Lance Stroll, brake issues on his way to the grid alongside Pierre Gasly for his lowest ever start in Singapore. Ahead of these, Esteban Ocon, his 15th, third time he started there in the last 4 races. Is this Daniel Ricciardo's last race? If it is, he starts 16th. Kevin Magnussen is back after a race ban, starts 14th, alongside Sergio Perez, 13th here on the grid for the 2nd year running. The two Williams drivers separated by just 7/1000ths of a second. Colapinto and Albon sharing row 6. Sharing row 5, Carlos Sainz, who crashed in qualifying, and Charles Leclerc, who had his time deleted for exceeding track limits. Then it's Fernando Alonso, 7th on the grid, and alongside him, Yuki Tsunoda, who's never finished a Grand Prix in Singapore. Nico Hülkenberg has a 6th place start, 2nd year in a row. A Haas driver has been 6th. Oscar Piastri starts 5th, and then it's all Mercedes on row 2. Lewis Hamilton alongside George Russell. Last time they were in the top 4, both of them, they went on to win. Max Verstappen starts 2nd, brilliant lap from him in qualifying, but it's Lando Norris on pole, the first McLaren pole here in Singapore since 2012. He's the last driver in the last 9 races, Martin Brundle, to win from pole. Can he do it tonight?
We'll find out shortly. It's a whole one. This is the one they trained for, that they do all the work over the winter and through the season, because it's tough. I mean, and let's be honest, if you transported animals with no space and in these temperatures, you'd be rightly arrested, actually. But these are athletes. They're pure athletes. Adrenaline gets them through, and their fitness. It'll be a tough night of driving and of sport for them. The tyres are up. And the outlier in the top 13, who all start on medium compound tyres, apart from Lewis Hamilton in 3rd on soft compound tyres. Mercedes have split their strategy between Hamilton and Russell. And with those tyres, Hamilton could be a real menace to the likes of Verstappen down into turn 1, because the soft tyre, albeit a used soft tyre, might give him a little bit more purchase off the start line. Time will tell. And then we're in for partly a game of chess and partly a boxing match, I'd imagine, especially towards the end. And they'll be desperately trying to control the pace, control the gaps, and then pull the pin and go, and build themselves a pit stop all the time, waiting and wondering when that sort of inevitable safety car will be. We'll find out.
It always has been inevitable here. We've never had a Singapore Grand Prix without at least one appearance from the safety car. We've had 11 deployments in the last 6 races here, and you just briefly saw a shot of the grid there. Look, Lando Norris with Max Verstappen 8 meters behind him. Verstappen has that inside line going into turn 1. His practice start, his final practice start before he got to the grid, was not exactly slick. Lando Norris has had problems with his starts. You don't often win a race at the start, but there's a feeling tonight, Martin, that either of these two could well do that.
The problem that they have on the inside, on their left, as it were, is you're really quite tight into the first corner. Whereas on the right-hand side of the grid, from where they're looking, they can sweep in. But of course, if they run wide in turn 2, they're obliged to head off completely away from the track, go around a polystyrene board with an arrow on it, and rejoin on the outside of turn 3. So it's a high penalty if you get too ambitious on the brakes down into the first corner.
They've had their first getaway at Sky Race Control. Anthony Davidson's been listening in.
And I listened in to particularly Lando Norris's start, Crofty, which sounded very good to me.
And he'll be hoping that continues. The 2 previous occasions that Lando Norris has been on pole this season with Max Verstappen alongside him on the front row. Verstappen has led at the end of lap 1. It didn't stop Lando Norris, of course, winning in Zandvoort. And McLaren say today that even if Lando Norris does get passed on the first lap by Verstappen, that is not the end of the game. As long as he survives, they should be okay.
Especially with the extra DRS zone, the 4th DRS, drag reduction system zone, where they can get the rear wing open, and cumulatively it might well make the difference for overtaking this year.
So in the championship, 313 points. The middle pillar of the Marina Bay Sands Hotel belongs to Max Verstappen. Lando Norris 59 points behind, and the nearest challenger. After Imola earlier in the season, the gap was 60 points, but the Red Bull car not performing as well at this stage as it was back in Imola, and there's a real chance, you feel, that McLaren can continue that momentum between now and Abu Dhabi.
As with Monza, Lando's pinned it on the formation lap, and a lot of them, I mean, he's going into turn 16. Zhou Guanyu just coming out of turn 9, so he'll need to back the pack up so he doesn't sit on the front of the grid too long again.
We've been saying all day it feels warmer in Singapore, and the track temperature 37 degrees. That is the hottest the track temperature has been at this time of night. Hotter than FP2 and hotter than qualifying as well, and that might have a bearing on the tyres and how long they last.
We wondered if Sergio Perez down in 13th for Red Bull might do a contrary strategy, but he hasn't. He's on the medium compounds as well. So hard compound runner, the first one, Kevin Magnussen, in P14. They should be able to run longer, but we haven't seen a lot of what they call graining or degradation here. The track was high pressure water washed, and it's been yielding some pretty good grip.
Maybe it's because we've been waiting all day to get going, but there's an air of anticipation and a buzz around Singapore for this race. Sport and live sport under the lights always has that extra pizzazz, that extra spectacle. And between now and the finale in Abu Dhabi, we've got not one, not two, but 3 proper night races to come here in Singapore, Qatar, of course, and the lights of Vegas are waiting for us in a few weeks' time. But there is tension in the garages and everywhere you look.
Cause looking breathless down there. It's only 177 meters from pole position to the first braking point. It's a really short run down to that first corner, which is why then they tend to be tightly packed when they get there.
And we are almost ready. You can just see Daniel Ricciardo, Lance Stroll, Pierre Gasly and the 2 Saubers slotting onto the grid. It's been at least 30 seconds that Lando Norris has been sat waiting in that pole position for everyone to get into their place. But it looks to me like everyone is in their place, and we wait for a green light, and still the wait continues now. We've got 3, 4, 5 lights on ahead of the drivers. It's lights out, away we go. That's an excellent start from Lando Norris, and it's a brilliant start too from Lewis Hamilton, but he's not going to cut off Max Verstappen into turn 1 as Lando Norris leads from Verstappen. Going wide there is the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. A little bit of a kerfuffle going on down at turn 1, but Norris got away very well from Verstappen, from Hamilton, from Russell and Hülkenberg, who's got ahead of Oscar Piastri. Then comes Fernando Alonso, and then the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, Piastri got dive bombed by a Mercedes, and it cost him dearly down into the first corner.
Now we approach a heavy braking zone at turn 7. Down the inside goes Oscar Piastri to snatch back that 5th place from Nico Hülkenberg, and there's a Ferrari going wide challenging Sergio Perez. It's the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Perez will try and keep that place, getting held up a little bit behind Yuki Tsunoda, and as we now make the next left-hand turn, he is ahead of Carlos Sainz. But look, we're on wheel to wheel now. Perez, Tsunoda, Sainz just behind them. Brilliant action on this first lap.
Yeah, Sainz then having to go around the outside of that long run we were talking about in turn 3. We'll keep an eye and see and make sure everybody did either make turn 2 or go through the penalty zone. Otherwise, they'll be taking some pain in this race. So it's relatively status quo now then, isn't it, in terms of where they started on the grid. But something I was talking about on the grid walk, we've got some outliers, especially now Colapinto's up into 9th as well.
Yeah.
We got some outliers in front of the likes of Sainz and Perez. They're not as fast on race pace, but they've got the all-crucial track position.
Franco Colapinto in his 3rd Grand Prix, already a point scorer in Formula 1, is up to 9th. He's made 3 places on this opening lap. His teammate Alex Albon dropping 4 places down into 15th. DRS is now enabled. There's 4 zones to try and help overtaking if you're within a second of the car in front, and the car in front is Lando Norris. He's about 9/10ths clear of Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton dropping back a bit, maybe having to preserve those soft compound tyres to keep them lasting. Then comes George Russell and Oscar Piastri.
Crucially, the Mercedes have dropped away from Verstappen in the DRS stakes, but not Verstappen on Norris. He's right in there, 3/4 second behind. He will get the rear wing open 4 times in the lap, and that's critical for Verstappen.
And Franco Colapinto with a bit of DRS assistance, very much staying behind Charles Leclerc and within touching distance of the Ferrari in front of him. Through turn 10 we go. Norris continues to lead. This clearly his best starts when he started from pole or from P1, because there were 2 sprint P1s in Formula 1 so far. His old mate Carlos Sainz is in a right old scrap behind Yuki Tsunoda and in front of Esteban Ocon, who's made up places on this opening lap. And elsewhere, Fernando Alonso staying in 7th. Leclerc is up to 8th. Still, Alex Albon down in the zone he didn't want to be. He's down in 15th currently as we ride on board with George Russell.
No sign at the moment of Norris out front, sort of backing the pack up to close any gaps as Russell starts to have a look with the help of his rear wing open at his teammate on completely different tyre strategies. And for Lewis Hamilton's side of the garage, they will be hoping for a safety car fairly early doors. But, you know, the best chance of that is on the opening lap or two.
And apart from a few going off at the first couple of corners, they pretty much kept it clean on that opening lap. No banging of wheels, no barging into barriers here. We haven't had a safety car for the last 8 races, and we're on lap 3, and Bert Mailander still sat biding his time here tonight.
Verstappen now out of DRS to leader Lando Norris, and it looks as if the Mercedes are starting to home in on him, and Piastri then has recovered nicely to keep himself in play. That should then turn into a 5-car race with Hülkenberg and Alonso, perhaps the cork in the bottle.
Yeah, the closest scrap at the moment is this one that we're focusing on here. We see Carlos Sainz behind Yuki Tsunoda and then behind Sergio Perez in 10th. Good start from Perez, starting 13th here for the 2nd year in a row. He finished 8th from 13th last time out and is looking to go a little bit better than that after an excellent start here tonight. But out in front, maintaining that gap at about 1.5 seconds to Max Verstappen is Lando Norris. And this is absolutely ideal for him, Martin. He can control the pace and keep his tyres in good nick from there.
Yeah, he can, and he hasn't got turbulent air to drive into. Russell already being told over the radio.
But he needs to increase the pace a bit as the guys at the front are getting away.
He's also been told to mind the spike of tyre temperature, especially in the early phase when you've got a full load of fuel and well over 100 kilograms of fuel. But I'm not surprised to hear that call. George Russell's basically saying, look, I think I can go faster than Lewis Hamilton. We're letting him get away. I'm on perhaps a more optimum tyre.
I mean, he's got the benefit of 4 DRS zones, George Russell, but he's about 0.4 of a second faster on average per lap than Lewis Hamilton. Just dropped back a bit actually now on that previous lap on lap 3, so he's now out of DRS range. But you know, he was matching the pace of Lando Norris before he had to drop back a bit.
Yeah, but as I said, he was told to cool it.
Yeah.
He's taking too much out of the tyres too early. And yeah, so there we have it. And it'll be interesting to see if Piastri can home back in now, how quickly he can home back in on the 2 Mercedes drivers. And that, if he starts filling Russell's mirrors, that will give the young Brit a bit of angst.
Let's have a look at the race start then. Said it was an excellent start for Lando Norris. And you can see there he clearly gets away quicker than Max Verstappen, who was busy covering rather than challenging.
He was. And Max goes through, keeps the car in play. Did Piastri, I think so, just about. And they've gone round the penalty zone. It was the 2 Spaniards, basically, are going round the penalty zone and somebody else behind them. And let's have a look at this start then. You live on your wits on the start. You know, you can't think about anything. You literally maneuver the car. And so Alonso got a great big slide at the back going on and had to bail out really early.
He did. It didn't cost him a place. It was clever thinking by Fernando Alonso. Kept the speed. Look at Colapinto down the inside.
What's he doing?
Well, it didn't please Alex Albon, but I tell you what, I rather enjoyed that. That was a super move from the Argentine.
Yeah, as you said, Albon did not see it the same way. So that's Sainz then. Oh, it's all going very difficult, isn't it? As soon as you're a little bit out of sync with the pack, you fall through so quickly if you're not careful.
This is Carlos Sainz. We saw him heading down the straight there, watching Sergio Perez battling with Yuki Tsunoda. Let's go on board with Oscar Piastri, race winner last time out. Got past at the start by Hülkenberg. Traditional Singapore overtake as he slung it down the inside.
That was a critical move for Piastri. Otherwise, if Hülkenberg had settled down in front of him, that was going to spoil the early part of his evening.
Hulkenberg has, of course, had back-to-back sixth-place finishes so far this year. Part of the reason that Haas in the Constructors' Championship are in 7th place at the moment and holding off Williams, but plenty of points to be had between now and the end of the season. And we are on lap 5 of 62 here, and there's a 2-second gap between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen out in front. Anthony Davidson, what you got for us?
So there's a feeling, Crofty, that the teams feel that Lando Norris isn't managing the pace at all. So that's what Carlos Sainz has been told. Lewis Hamilton's been told to stick to their own race. So, yeah, definitely a feeling that Lando may be taken, as he just says fast as that, taken by Max Verstappen just now. Feeling that those two in front are definitely pushing these tyres a little bit too hard.
As Ted's cousin watches on from the garage, is that because the tyres are performing a little bit better, Martin, so that the likes of Norris, Verstappen can push that little harder without detrimenting their strategy?
Oh, they obviously think so. So they're treating it like a normal Grand Prix rather than a Singapore Grand Prix, where, as we saw in Monaco, Ferrari doing it in Monaco, go so slowly that there isn't a gap forming behind you. And bear in mind, this is the longest pit stop of the year because it's just 40 miles an hour down the pit lane, and it's a long pit lane. Because it's so narrow, it's a reduced speed here, as we sometimes see. And just keep all the gaps tight, then nobody can surprise you. But they don't appear to be running it like that. It's just hightailing it down the road.
Certainly Verstappen has carried on where he left off on lap 5 and has pulled another couple of tenths out of Lando Norris's advantage out in front. That gap now about 1.7 seconds. Lewis Hamilton continues just to drop off a little bit on those soft compound tyres. Better middle sector on this lap from Lando Norris, and I'm sure George Russell, having dropped back just to cool his car a little bit, will be wanting to move a little closer to his teammate. Thing is here, as you can see from the helicopter camera, there are lots of tall buildings, narrow streets that run in between the buildings. There's barely a breath of wind in this place tonight, and it's hot and it's humid, so keeping these cars cool is very, very tricky indeed.
Yeah, and the heat seems to swirl around amongst the walls as well. It's just, it seems even hotter when you're on track with the walls and the debris fencing around you.
We've seen his cousin. Let's head down to F1's rock star, Ted Kravitz, in the pit lane.
Don't know about that. He's much cooler than me, Crofty. But anyway, listen, Charles Leclerc, this is crucial if you're watching this battle between the Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso and Leclerc's Ferrari. Leclerc needs to make a move before the first stops come between laps sort of 12 and 14 if his strategy is to work. Ferrari believe that they have a fast race car this afternoon, but Leclerc really needs to make this move if his race is going to pan out with anywhere close to the podium.
If Ferrari not so much worried about the Aston Martin going into this race.
I took a carbon part on my left side.
Car looks fine.
So something has fallen off another car in front.
Yeah, I wonder, or on the previous lap, somebody behind him, but I wonder who's lost a piece and have they been having an adventure here and there. But Ferrari were pretty unhappy about their 9th and 10th on the grid, weren't they? And they knew it was going to be a tough afternoon for them. And that was without Sainz slipping back rather than going forward in the first corner.
As I said, they weren't so much worried about the pace of the Aston Martin. They believe that and the Haas of Hulkenberg they could get. If they got stuck behind a Williams, then they were a little bit worried. The upgraded Williams of Alex Albon. That's not happened, but they are in Carlos Sainz's cause behind Colapinto. And Colapinto at the moment is keeping Sergio Perez very honest, just to show that Williams is a better car after their recent upgrades with the promise of more to come. And I tell you what, he's already proved, I think, Martin, in his very short time in Formula One that it wasn't a bad choice to replace Logan Sargent.
Absolutely, and he was giving it full beans in qualifying yesterday as well, was Colapinto. And I've got to be honest, he was never on my radar. Williams have sort of been nurturing him, but he's turning into quite the star so far, and largely, keeping it neat and tidy as well.
Well, he's already had the benefits of one street race so far in Azerbaijan last week, where he scored those points. Now, this is a very different prospect altogether. 62 laps in the heat and the humidity. This will really, really test him. But so far, passing the test with flying colours, as I said. We're on board with Carlos Sainz, who finds himself behind Yuki Tsunoda in the RB. Tsunoda just off the points currently, and that's out in front. Around about 2.5 seconds between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, and Norris has got the fastest lap of this race so far as well, but there is a long, long way to go.
I've been in these kind of temperatures in sports cars for long, long races, and it soaks your concentration. It just soaks your energy somehow from every part of your body, and you need the concentration, you need the adrenaline, and out front, Norris is just going for it.
How's the pace?
Yeah, pace 6 or something.
Okay,
Wow.
in which case, we'd like to use a bit of that pace to try and get a 5-second gap to Max, if possible, by the mid-teens.
So in about 7 laps time, 6-7 laps time.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a bit like that feature I had in the pre-show, wasn't it? I mean, here's a team that's suddenly like, right, just put 5 seconds on the Red Bull, will you? I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the rate of change, the rate of development, and that's something I love about Formula One. Stand still and you'll go backwards at a vast rate of knots.
Start of the season when we used to 5-second gaps between the Red Bull and Max Verstappen and other cars, but it was the other way round at the start of the season. Max Verstappen, who hasn't won now since Spain, his last win, the Spanish Grand Prix. So Alex Albon is pressing Kevin Magnussen hard, medium tyre against hard tyre, Williams against Haas. Carlos Sainz is fractionally closer to Yuki Tsunoda, and I'm sure getting a little bit frustrated behind Tsunoda.
You can see it, Colpinto is struggling. Let's have him.
Well, Perez has just closed up in the last lap and a half to Franco Colapinto. Maybe he's just overdone his tyres a touch. There you can see Sergio Perez a few car lengths behind and getting the advantage of another 15 kilometres an hour or so of DRS assistance as we head down towards turn 16.
It's about now you start to think, this is hot, this is so hot, and you realise you're 15% of the way through the race.
And you can see Carlos Sainz moving to the right behind Yuki Tsunoda to try and get some air, some cleaner air into his car. They cross the finish line. Perez now less than 0.4 of a second behind Franco Colapinto. The gap between Norris and Verstappen has gone up to 4 seconds. Another new fastest lap for Lando Norris, who's doing exactly what his team are asking him. And what Red Bull want is Sergio Perez a little bit closer to the front.
Yeah, I mean, Norris's reply was, I'm 6 out of 10 in terms of what I can do. And why they want that 5-second gap is if Red Bull at some point down the road decide to try and undercut them and come in the pits, they've got a lap margin. It builds them that comfort zone, doesn't it, of being able to respond to Red Bull and still stay
looks like plan B at the moment, plan B.
Copy.
Which might be go a little bit longer with your opening stints than we were originally intending, just so that you're out there with track position. If Red Bull feel they have to pit earlier with Max Verstappen, and maybe you can hold Max Verstappen up a touch in the way that, well, Lando Norris held up Sergio Perez a little bit in Baku for a lap or so, just to aid the victory last time out.
I assume they change their plans every race, otherwise they're just giving valuable information to their rivals. We could hazard a guess at that, but it's quite clear to me that Piastri is driving a different race to Norris out front. Piastri is very much pacing himself and like 1.6 seconds slower there than the leader of the race's teammate. That's
a man, I think, driving for the long game.
And Magnussen reporting hard seems worse than medium competitors.
That was certainly the case in his battle with Alex Albon, as Daniel Ricciardo, first driver to pit on lap 11, early pit stop to try and put him into some free, clean air and manage their pace just a little bit. Into the pits he comes. Ricciardo started this race on the soft compound tyre. Let's have a look at this RB pit stop. Very slick with the left rear. A little bit slower at the right on that one, 3.5 seconds. He'll come out of this into this race last, but in a nice clean air and sporting a new set of tyres. Looks all very wobbly on the curbs, doesn't it, for Lewis Hamilton? Look at the oscillations on that.
Yeah, they ran about 23 psi, but the wide tyres is the minimum pressures they're allowed, but you do get some of that oscillation on the sawtooth curbs. But yeah, Ricciardo's got some nice clear air. They might as well do that out back, mayn't they? But and Norris nearly up to his 5 seconds now that they asked him to pull on Verstappen, who's similarly...
Perez and Colapinto are fighting. There could be something coming to us. Let's be on it.
Too much information.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit speculative, isn't it? And I don't know if you really need to bother your driver with that, do you? I mean, he'll dive around the cloud of carbon, the confetti of carbon fibre pieces should something happen, I'm sure.
Yep. I'm sure he's watching it very closely, given that he's a second and a half behind that particular battle out on track as across the line goes Hülkenberg with Fernando Alonso in DRS range and Leclerc in DRS range of Alonso as well. So is Hülkenberg struggling a touch on his tyres as Alex Albon now pits. He was stuck behind Kevin Magnussen, which was rather ruining his race after dropping all those places on the opening lap. So they've switched his strategy and have brought him in now to cover off Daniel Ricciardo as well. Hard tyres going on. The last thing they want with Alex Albon is to keep going for a few more laps, getting stuck behind Kevin Magnussen, and to have the RB ahead of them when Albon finally pits. So they've covered that one off.
I would have thought as the track continues to rub... Oh, that was close, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Continues to rubber in, and they get rid of the fuel load, and especially the cars are a bit more downforce, they will fire up the hard compound tyres just fine.
Perez staying nicely away from the concrete barrier at turn 17, and Franco Colapinto taking a wider line through the corner and a much closer attention to it. Might just have grazed the concrete paint. Now, here's Carlos Sainz, close enough to Yuki Tsunoda here to get a good exit out of the next corner and make a move down into turn 16. We shall see.
I'm sliding around like hell.
Struggling on those hard tyres at the moment, so the track temperature still around 37 degrees, and the answer is Carlos Sainz needed to be another couple of car lengths closer to make a move down the inside.
Yeah, and then the answer also is that fourth DRS at this phase of the Grand Prix, until they start really hurting with tyre wear, it isn't making the difference in terms of overtaking, shall we say. Russell beginning is just on his personal best, but they are 5 seconds off the back of Verstappen now, and again, I think, like Piastri, driving to a different pace.
Everyone is driving to a different pace to Lando Norris currently. He's the only driver that is in the 136s, mid-136s, and that gap on lap 13 is up to 7.5 seconds. He's building a really, really useful lead to Max Verstappen. There's a long way to go in this race, but this looks like the sort of pace that gave him such a commanding victory in Zandvoort at the Dutch Grand Prix.
Well, keep an eye on Nico Hülkenberg. He's 21 seconds behind Norris, at least 2 seconds a lap slower. When that gets to 30 seconds in the next 5 laps, Norris will have a pit stop window there to drop into, should he choose to do so.
And that's one of the things that McLaren are asking from their driver, to give us that pit stop window, that opportunity. As around the slow left-hander we go once more at turn 13 and onto the Esplanade Bridge with Carlos Sainz behind Yuki Tsunoda. There is Oscar Piastri. Is Oscar Piastri keeping the same sort of pace to George Russell? Yes, he is.
Yeah, I wonder if they've already started to think of Piastri with that plan B tactically at McLaren as to how they can help Norris a little bit later on. Sainz pits then for Ferrari. Ted's down in the pit lane. What do you got for us, Ted?
Yeah, just seeing the Ferrari come in. Just to explain what's going on with Mercedes, them dropping down with the Lewis Hamilton soft tyre start. The intention was, as you say, Crofty and Martin, that they were hoping to gain position on lap 1 with Hamilton. That didn't work out. Okay, you could say he did keep position. That's the switch onto the hard tyres, obviously, for Sainz. Not the quickest stop I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, apparently with Hamilton, his pace is just sort of capped at the moment with having to keep the rear tyres under control. Just keep the overheating tyres under control.
Undercut power looks strong, maybe 2 seconds.
And I was And there is absolute evidence of that undercut power. Remember, Alex Albon stopped to cover off Daniel Ricciardo. Carlos Sainz has been brought in there. Smart thinking by Ferrari to cover off Alex Albon. Because that one more lap, and he's coming out way behind the Williams, who's got DRS, though, Alex Albon, down Raffles Boulevard towards turn 7. Sainz is just far enough ahead to ward off any threat at that moment.
Yeah. Absolutely right, and now we're going to see the true potential of the hard compound tyre, and I think Kevin Max has been struggling on them, but it does seem as if they'll come into a sweet spot anytime now.
Now, what's going to be interesting here, now that Albon and Sainz have stopped for their hard tyres, does this trigger the likes of Tsunoda and Perez to have to come in and make a pit stop a bit earlier, because they're in danger, I think, of losing track position if they stay out that much longer, and if that undercut power is that much stronger?
It's a big undercut, isn't it? It means fresh tyres gives you so much grip. There's so many braking zones, turn-in points, and here's Sainz. What's he done?
He's just stopping in time, I think, on that one, and not going over the white line. Did he go over the white line with his right-hand tyre? Certainly, I think he touched it. They might look at that.
But the tyre's got to be all the way over it. So the inside part of the tyre's got to be beyond the white line. But there we go. Lewis Hamilton. Different colour scheme on those cars this weekend, if you're wondering why they look slightly different as they come in towards you. From one of their sponsors, and there is Piastri just sort of keeping watch, beginning to pick the pace up, beginning to come back towards Mercedes-Benz.
Now, these hard tyres that have been put on Albon and Sainz are working beautifully for the Williams and the Ferrari. Albon had gone into the 136s a few moments ago. He's actually, Alex Albon is in a bit of problem because he's lost touch with Carlos Sainz, and he's just been passed by Daniel Ricciardo.
He's had a horrible first sector on this lap, Alex Albon.
While we're riding on board with George Russell, Albon's lost a place and looks to be limping around the track a little bit. I wonder if he's picked up an issue here after that pit stop. As we head round the final corner with Oscar Piastri, a couple of seconds off George Russell. You can see how Alex Albon has got absolutely detached now at the rear of the fields, and we can ride on board with him.
It looks really low and stiff at the back, doesn't it, at that pace, but the motor sounds fine. But it looks like he's heading into the pits, maybe for a retirement. Alex Albon.
He just on a 136. He was comparable with Lando Norris on the lap before all the issues.
Difficult to find. Copy.
Well, there is praise indeed from Sergio Perez, who has 275 Grand Prix worth of experience and is finding out just how good Colapinto is on his 3rd Grand Prix. Meanwhile, on board with the Ferrari currently, staring, as it has been, Charles Leclerc at the rear of that Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. Nico Hülkenberg very much the cork in the bottle for these two.
We talk about teams with a long way north of 1,000 personnel, a long way north, some of them. Hülkenberg, P6, Haas, around 280 people are working in that team. They do an extraordinary job, as I said yesterday, in the David and Goliath stakes.
And working down at Williams, a pit crew waiting for Alex Albon. Ted Kravitz.
I mean, it looks okay. It's all going in a straight line. It's all pointed, but this is retirement. Alex Albon turns off the car, and then the mechanics put the fans in, and what a disappointment for Alex. Of course, the Singapore Grand Prix, so important to Alex, the closest race of the year to his to Thailand, of course, where his family is from and under which flag he races. He really wanted a good result here. Went bad from lap 1, didn't it, Crofty, and got worse. We'll get a reason for retirement, but we've seen those things happen, especially at the back of the car after pit stops. Can put stresses through the car. I'll find out what's happened, get back to you.
Thank you very much. Car overheating. Alex Albon was told the Marina Bay circuit 337 miles from the border with Thailand. Anthony, to you.
Yeah, so I was listening into Albon's radio, and he was indeed told to box the car. You could see it's overheating, but they believe there might be something in one of the ducts. I think that's what I could just make out, so that would make sense, wouldn't it, with it overheating there at the rear.
So, Carlos Sainz, now he's warmed up his hard compound tyres, is lapping in the 1 minute 36s. Lando Norris is lapping in still in the 1 minute 36s. He is 12 seconds out in front, and no one else is getting anywhere close to those times.
Trouble for Sainz is he's now going to catch Bottas, Zhou Guanyu, Stroll and Gasly rapidly. Presumably he'll have enough grip, and that's not him, of course, that's Leclerc. But when he gets there, he should have enough speed and grip to sail past those drivers, and he needs to.
Certainly does. The trouble he's got is that Bottas and Zhou and Stroll, they're not going to be pitting anytime soon because they started on those hard compound tyres. So do Ferrari think about an undercut here with Charles Leclerc? Because he's in a position where he could quite easily jump Alonso and Hülkenberg, as Hamilton is now going to come in with a clever undercut.
Yeah, Leclerc was nearly having a chat with the wall there when we went on board with him as Hamilton pits to get rid of those soft tyres. Presumably if Russell's got performance to spare, we're about to see it.
Well, Hamilton pits. His teammate George Russell might be thinking about pitting too, because Oscar Piastri is right up his rear wing. And the undercut is very possible there, but we think McLaren are going long with Oscar Piastri. We should give George a bit of breathing space for the time being. 2.5 seconds stationary for Hamilton. Where is he going to come out, though, into this race? Charging down towards turn 1 is Kevin Magnussen. Hamilton should slot back in behind him.
Norris is sort of building himself. He's starting to head towards building himself a pit stop window over Max Verstappen in second place. A dozen seconds clear now, and taking the thick end of a second a lap out of him. So Norris flying along at the front.
So we got the feeling when we last heard from George Russell, Martin, that he wasn't really showing his true pace in this race because he was behind his teammate and couldn't get close enough to make the overtake. Now we'll see what the true pace is.
We'll see what he's got. And that's Piastri behind him.
Can he pull away from Oscar Piastri, put some daylight, get out of that undercut threat?
And good job on the brakes.
Yeah, but they react completely differently now.
So presumably he's been cooling those down a little bit and now doesn't like the feel of them.
Yeah, he's just backed off a little bit behind Fernando Alonso. He's out of the DRS range to cool them down and get some air running through them.
And we mustn't forget, Ferrari still fancy a chance at the Constructors' Championship, don't they? But with Leclerc in 8th and Sainz making his way back from currently P17, this is not how they need it to be playing out today.
It's not how Red Bull needed it to be playing out either. 2nd and 9th with Verstappen and Perez, while McLaren, championship leaders of course for the first time since 2014, are running 1st and 4th currently. And Lando Norris at the moment running his own race and is now 13.5 seconds nearly clear of Max Verstappen.
Piastri hanging on to the back of Russell, so as you say, will these two now just give it absolutely full performance, or will they need to cover off others who've made pit stops as well? But Sainz then has cleared one of the Saubers, but still hasn't cleared Zhou Guanyu. This is the pain he's going to take coming through there, and he's in the 38s when he should be in the 36s.
Absolutely, but look, he's gaining on Zhou Guanyu as we head down Raffles Boulevard past the hotels and the shopping centre, and he's picked up a nice little purchase there to put that Ferrari up into 16th. Right, we are running on lap 20 of the Singapore Grand Prix. 19 still running. It's a 4th retirement of the year for Alex Albon, but why? Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, confirmed by the team as a power unit overheating problem. So whether he picked up a visor tear off or a bag or something in his radiators after the pit stop, that's what led to Albon actually retiring from the race. But I'm seeing some action in the McLaren box, pit box, Crofty. I'm just wondering if now is the time for Piastri to come in and try maybe a little bit of a cheeky undercut on George Russell, because you see the pace of Norris. That's the same car Piastri is driving, and Piastri's no slouch. So I know it's the long game you've been talking about, Oscar Piastri, but he's got to get on with it at some point, doesn't he?
And Lando Norris now 34.5 seconds ahead of Hülkenberg, Alonso and Leclerc. He can afford to make a pit stop, will not get caught up in traffic. He'd come out behind his teammate, so Norris has bought himself quite a lot of options here.
Certainly has. We're on board with Lewis Hamilton after his pit stop. He has some overtaking to do, and the first driver ahead of him that he can get close to is Kevin Magnussen. He pulls out to the right-hand side and makes that move before the corner. What I am seeing, though, is quite a few marbles already building up off the racing line, which certainly doesn't help overtaking, because you get onto the slippery stuff, then it stays on your tyres for a little bit longer and it rather affects your pace. No problems whatsoever with that pace of Lando Norris. Nearly 15 seconds clear of Max Verstappen. George Russell running in third now that he's been freed. He's about half a second a lap clear of Oscar Piastri. He's put some distance between himself and that McLaren.
Hulkenberg looking more in his mirrors than out the front of the car down the straight there to make sure he's not about to have a lunging Fernando Alonso.
I think I clipped the wall on the way into the plane and left. Look.
Well, he says that. They're running out into the pit lane at McLaren. And was that a bit of a dummy? Because Oscar Piastri has gone straight past and completed another lap. So, as you were, everybody.
Back in the blankets, we know what tyres they'll be putting on that. It's the only tyre to put on it, frankly, isn't it? Because they started on the mediums, they've got to run two different compounds, of course, and a dry race.
On board with Carlos Sainz at the end of the DRS zone at turn 16, and that time around got tantalizingly close to Fernando Alonso, but Alonso is cunning and he is wily and he's not going to be overtaken very easily, and you can see
Fernando, for our race, we just want to go as long as possible, so if we need to look after the tyres, we will. We just don't want to be the first person to pit between you and Max.
Because we might want some tyre life, extra performance life towards the ends, and to be honest, Verstappen could pit now and Lando could probably stay out for another 3 or 4 laps and still be clearly ahead of Verstappen when he pits. Here comes Carlos Sainz, and eventually he gets his man. Carlos Sainz here gets Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, moves up into 15th, and Charles Leclerc continues on behind Fernando Alonso in the other Ferrari versus Aston Martin battle. And if Nico Hulkenberg is struggling a bit, not running the right pace, he is doing a super job for Haas to keep those two at bay. Did Lewis Hamilton clip the wall? He certainly had the slide.
It had the slide. It's difficult to know from that camera angle. It didn't look like he was going to hit the wall, did it? I think it was just a slide.
Doesn't need those tyres again. He was just a bit worried that the slide was because he might have glanced the wall and he didn't feel it, and there might be damage to the car. There is Lewis Hamilton behind Esteban Ocon, and these fresh tyres certainly helping his pace and helping him get some overtakes done as we head towards turn 1. You can see those marbles, those bits of discarded rubber from the tyres off the racing line as they head through turns 1, 2 and 3.
The benefit really, I mean, Norris, Verstappen and Russell are all in clear air because the gaps are so enormous, actually, at the moment. But they've got that. But Norris is just a plain second a lap faster than Verstappen.
That McLaren works so well in free air, and Lewis Hamilton wants a bit more free air and cleaner air as well, and he's got past Esteban Ocon to move himself up into 11th. He's pitted, Carlos Sainz has pitted, Daniel Ricciardo has pitted, and Alex Albon pitted too, and is the only retirement with a suspected power unit issue.
We are one of the earlier stoppers, but not the earliest.
Yeah, being trouble there. Way too short.
Yeah, Lewis feeling he didn't need to come in that early, and it was a good, I'll try and see if we see it again, but when we watch the yellow glove of Lewis come across, when you turn the wheel, you block your own view out, basically, with your hand. There you see it now on the Ferrari. You literally block your forward view, but you're not looking out the front. You're looking sort of across the top of the two, in front of the two tyres. You're looking to the left or the right, depending on the corner. Otherwise, you literally can't see where you're going.
I wonder if the pace at the front from Lando Norris and the subsequent chain reaction from it was just too fast for those soft compound tyres right at the start of this race, and that's what's put Lewis Hamilton into an earlier stop than A, he was thinking, and B, he would have liked. He had to try and keep with that pace, couldn't, without coming in too early.
He obviously started on the soft compound, which looks like a mistake, doesn't it? Because it didn't give him any advantage on the first lap or two. and it means he had to come in earlier. Yeah, I think that mistake was probably made this morning rather than during the race.
Very good point. But having stopped now, he may or may not suffer towards the end of the race, but he might be able to keep that place, keep ahead of his teammates George Russell by the time Russell and everyone in between Hamilton make their
so
stops.
frustrating. How many laps are we going to do like this?
Keep calm.
Well, you can understand it, because he has been tucked up behind Fernando Alonso and Nico Hülkenberg, who's doing a super job to protect that, what is currently 5th place and the next 6th. But for Charles Leclerc, he could just see any hopes of a top 5 finish just disappearing at the moment.
There's nothing they can do. They can't magic him up the road, and they're right to say keep calm, because drive angry, the car goes sideways and backwards, doesn't go forwards. And it's just a very good point of, look, that's the hand we've been dealt today after a poor qualifying. Let's see how it plays out. We're nowhere near half distance yet.
We're only on lap 24 out of 62. Ted, down to you.
I know it's frustrating. I feel Charles Leclerc's pain, but, you know, Alonso and Hülkenberg are driving really well to keep him behind him. Just a quick one on Piastri. Do you think we're looking, Crofty, at them trying to clear Lewis Hamilton with their stop? Because the McLaren mechanics, feel a bit sorry for them. They've all got their helmets and balaclavas on. They've been in and out of that McLaren pit box more times than, well, something that's been in and out of something very often. But anyway, they're not, you know, are they trying to get 30 seconds on Hamilton to make sure that they come out? Because at the moment they haven't got it, have they? But they're short about 3 seconds.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'll tell you who's not short at the moment of the seconds he needs is Carlos Sainz, who I think has undercut Charles Leclerc with that early pit stop. There's a 24-second gap between Leclerc and Sainz at the moment. Leclerc can pit, and his teammate will be ahead of him.
That will please him massively, won't it? He's already not very happy.
Quite. Let's go to the pit wall at RB. Lauren Mekis is with us, running 10th, and with Daniel Ricciardo running 19th. Lauren, give us the story of your race so far. Why the early pit stop for Daniel Ricciardo?
Yes, look, we had to pit a bit earlier than planned with Daniel. We anyway started on the new soft with him to try to be aggressive. We didn't make any places at the start, but we wanted to give him a chance to move back up on the grid. We pitted early. We had a little bit of concern with some debris in the brake duct, but it's now cleared, so he's putting some good laps together. Obviously, he's at the back of the pack, but he's free air and as it's getting back onto the guy right now.
And Yuki running in 10th place. He's got Lewis Hamilton right behind him. Are you worried about the potential of undercuts behind Yuki Tsunoda?
Well, we have a bit of a margins behind Yuki with, you know, Lewis has pitted already, so we are not that straight with that. He's probably going to pass us. This is the most likely scenario. We have a bit of margin on Ocon behind, so we are not really looking at the threat of the undercuts. We are trying to see how much we want to extend this stint and see if there is a chance to get a bit closer to the guys in front.
Kevin Magnussen struggled on the hard compound tyres early in the race, but they seem to have come into the right zone now, would you say?
Yeah, you're right. The guys that were on hard at the beginning, you know, Stroll, Magnussen, they all seem to struggle a little bit, so you don't really want to beat behind them either. But yeah, it's becoming a bit more reasonable now for them. But certainly it's probably one of the reasons you see most of the
you're killing me with this offset, mate.
Lots of options like twist still this.
Look great on those cars.
Thanks ever so much, Laurent. We'll maybe speak to you a little bit later. Lewis Hamilton not happy with the strategy he's been given here, trying to chase down Yuki Tsunoda. You're killing me with this offset, he's saying. Charles Leclerc has finally got past Fernando Alonso into turn 16. He's made that stick as we watch now. Yuki Tsunoda passed by Lewis Hamilton, who goes very wide at turn 16, and that just gives the place back to Tsunoda again. And Alonso pits from 7th.
Wow, Lewis was super late on the brakes down there, wasn't he? That was never gonna make the corner, and that's cost him dearly. The offset that Lewis was talking about, you know, you pitted me early. I'm now out of sync with the drivers around me. They're pitting later. They'll have fresher tyres. They'll have an offset tyre life at the end of the race.
Yeah, and overtaking is not impossible here. Yes, it might be difficult. And Lewis is feeling that the defence might be just a little bit too improbable for him by the time it all converges in the closing stages. Fernando Alonso comes back out onto the track ahead of his teammate Lance Stroll, who hasn't pitted yet. And this is how Hamilton got past Tsunoda, and under braking went too deep.
Yeah, it just... So Tsunoda starts harvesting battery power. Lewis...
Something's definitely wrong with the car. Tires are dropping off.
Yeah, that's also driven.
Yeah, the anchors, he put the anchors out too late there. That was never going to make the apex.
It's not a nice moment for Lewis Hamilton or Toto Wolff, and Mercedes. Well, their team boss might just be rubbing his head with his hand in a few moments' time once again, because look how close Oscar Piastri is to George Russell. I've been keeping an eye on this the last 4 or 5 laps. Piastri has been steadily gaining on George Russell. So that pace that we were seeing in the opening stages, where he was biding his time, seems to be giving him benefits now, and it's coming good with performance life in those tyres to try and get some overtaking done.
Yeah. And this high wing, high downforce setup on the McLaren, where Norris dominated.
Rear tyres are quite bad now.
Yep, understood. That shouldn't be too long.
Sounds like the next bus, doesn't it? But yeah, where they ran this high downforce setup, where Norris dominated so much back in Zandvoort, and it's working beautifully again, isn't it?
Shouldn't be too long was the message there from GP to Max Verstappen. They trying to build a gap, Anthony Davidson to Hulkenberg.
Well, no, the front two, Crofty, they're just waiting it out because of the safety car. If that happened to either one of them, then the one that pits obviously under safety car would be the clear winner.
Okay.
So that's what they're waiting. They're just standing off, aren't they? And neither wants to be the first one to jump.
Just wondering, because Hulkenberg at the moment is probably about a lap and a half away from being a pit stop behind Max Verstappen, as we watch George Russell against Oscar Piastri, and we see Carlos Sainz in his battle to thread his way through the field. He's got Esteban Ocon ahead of him, but not for much longer, as he's going to squeeze down the inside there and claim 11th place from Esteban Ocon, and that's how he got past Kevin Magnussen. Ted, down to you as George Russell comes in.
Yeah, so they've waited for long enough for a goal hanging for a safety car that's never going to come. So George is going to see what he can do from here. But Fernando Alonso has jumped. He's undercut Nico Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg hasn't stopped yet, but Alonso's done a brilliant outlap, and the lap after that, he's done enough to clear Hulkenberg in those stops.
And I wonder now, McLaren might be ruining not having they did those fake sort of pit stop moves, didn't they? Not bringing Piastri in, because that's going to give Russell a massive amount of pace to build a gap to Piastri.
We're on board with Charles Leclerc, but Piastri's just been given the hurry up by his race engineer. This is the race now, time to go, is the message over the team radio. Now he's been freed from behind George Russell. Let's see what he's got.
This is the race, let's go.
There you go, confirmation of that particular radio message. So Norris and Verstappen and Piastri, the top 3 yet to pit. Hulkenberg, Leclerc, Colapinto, Perez haven't pitted. Russell is the first of the drivers that have made a pit stop.
This is working out horribly for Charles Leclerc, though, isn't it? Yeah. He's losing net places while he's tucked up behind the Haas. He's just losing out to those that are pitted.
And this is the defensive job that Nico Hulkenberg's doing. It's doing wonders, I'm sure, for his race, but as you say, wrecking Charles Leclerc's. But he wouldn't have been down in 9th place if his tyres gave him enough grip into turn 1, but they've got enough grip there going into the right-hander at turn 16, and finally Charles Leclerc can get past the Haas. He is up into 4th place.
And didn't pit, of course. That was just before the pit lane, so probably elected to do something a little different there and just keep going. And let's see what Piastri's got. Piastri's virtually matching Norris out front now, and that's the kind of pace he needs, because Russell will fly on these tyres.
I'll tell you one person who is pitting, it's Sergio Perez, who was steadily making his way through the field. But now's a good time to get him back out into the racetrack with a decent gap to perform the way he wants without cars around him. Hard tyres have gone on, 2.2 second pit stop, which is a fairly rapid stop there for the Red Bull team, who've come out ahead, they hope, of
front wing damage, maybe front wing damage.
So where has Lando Norris picked up a bit of front wing damage? Has he gone over a curb? Is that the issue? We're on board with Lando Norris. Trouble is you can't see much of the front wing, and Max Verstappen is coming into the pits now. Now he was saying, Martin, he wanted to pit and he needed to pit, but do they just sense at Red Bull now's a really good time to pit, Max? Try the undercut, which wouldn't necessarily work unless Norris has got to replace that front wing.
Yeah, he touched the wall. He locked up into turn 14, I'm hearing, so we'll get a replay of that. But it takes about 12 seconds to change the nose and front wing. And, of course, he's got that in hand with the lead he's built. But Norris concerned then that he may have damaged the front wing, but they'll look at the suspension loads from the data on the car and quickly work out if they think that he's lost some front downforce.
Verstappen comes out wheel to wheel here, neck and neck with Charles Leclerc. Leclerc, that was touch and go, gets ahead of Max Verstappen, and whilst Charles Leclerc has not pitted yet, the last thing Red Bull really wanted is Verstappen to be stuck behind the Ferrari.
Yeah, he won't be there long though, will he?
Well, you wouldn't think so, but let's see. As we head down Raffles Boulevard, is Max Verstappen within striking distance? No, he's not. He's got at least a few more corners to go. Hulkenberg's pitting. Colapinto is pitting. Ocon is pitting as well. Hulkenberg with a 3-second stop. The Williams crew 2/10 quicker with Franco Colapinto.
But you're right in what you say. The last thing Red Bull needed was for him, and it looked a decent Red Bull stop, didn't it? Was for him to lose any time, even if it's on the outlap, as Norris pits from the lead.
Ted Kravitz is down there. Down to you, Ted.
Right, let's have a look at this front wing then, shall we? Looks okay from where I can see, and they get to work. Very nice, of course, they're not changing it. And if there is any damage, it's small enough not to be able to be seen, Crofty. Let's see if you can see it on your head-on shots. But I don't think there's much damage to that front wing. Looks okay to me.
Not much damage to Verstappen's race. He's not tucked up behind Leclerc for long, and he's back up into third place.
Yeah, it looked fine, didn't it? We saw them adjusting something on it, but that's standard when you change compounds. You either want more or less front wing to balance the aerodynamics up with the different tyres.
So after Verstappen pitted a lap earlier, Lando Norris came into the pits, changed his tyres, continues in the lead of this race. Last two Singapore Grand Prix have been led from start to finish, and this race in 2024 is being led from start to lap 31 by that man there, Lando Norris.
Yeah, Oscar Piastri's heart's just sunk a bit. He's not pitted yet, and still Norris is out in front of him. That's what it's cost him in the traffic and cost him in qualifying yesterday, as Norris still busy collecting the McLaren up there in the traction zone.
Verstappen absolutely flying, not overly happy with the strategy that he's been given. And let's see what it looked like from on board as he rounds the inside of turn 2 and then suddenly sees a Ferrari right in front of him.
I just don't get it, why we let him uppercut us by so far. It's just so stupid.
Yeah, but I think what Max doesn't realise is that he's not really been undercut. The Ferrari's pit stop behind him. I think that's what he thinks he's just lost track. He has, effectively, but he thinks he's lost race position, and he hasn't in reality, and he hasn't in fact now.
I'm sure the message was relayed back. Look, it's not our fault. Charles Leclerc finally got past Nico Hulkenberg and is showing a lot more pace than he was able to before. Look at that, so McLaren 1-2 at the moment. Lando Norris leads from Oscar Piastri, 3 and a bit seconds, the difference between the two McLarens. Piastri has not pitted in this race yet.
A small issue with the front wing, nothing serious.
And your gap to Max Verstappen, by the way, is round about 20 seconds, 21 seconds between Norris and Verstappen. It's Randy Singh, the racing director at McLaren, overseeing the strategy with the strategy team. Head full of numbers throughout each and every one of the 62 laps here tonight.
Verstappen quicker in this phase, certainly on this lap, than Norris out front by a couple of tenths in the first sector. And a bit of an incident out there between Gasly and Hülkenberg that's been noted. They're having a look at. Now, what are we going to see?
So is this where Lando Norris thought that he'd hit the wall?
Yeah.
And how close is it? There's the lock-up, there's the lock-up. Oh, ho, ho. He might have brushed it, but he didn't bang it.
Yeah, wow. Lucky escape. He nerfed it, didn't he? But it was quite soft. The wall was quite soft there. He's locked the front. He's obviously, his tyres are getting a little bit thin and losing temperature. And Lando has, that's the wrong side of the front wing. It's the other side that he needs to be looking at. There's nothing hanging off it, is there? Anyway.
I tell you what, Martin, we've seen incidents like that where a driver has touched the wall harder and has absolutely destroyed their race. And
yeah, AFM. So traction metrics, everything's looking really good at the moment.
That is not the answer that I expected there. I thought, go, George, go. What might be a better encouragement message, but traction metrics? It's very engineer motivation, isn't it?
I don't think George was looking for how well he's doing and a gold star. I think he was...
And these laps are crucial. Keep driving like this.
Yeah, I think he was sort of asking for, give me some tools to work with.
Traction metrics, all about limiting the wheel spin on the cars, by the way. I was just going to say, you need a bit of luck to go out and win races and maybe win championships, and Lando Norris just had a bit of luck at turn 14.
I mean, yeah. Another half metre of slide and he'd have been reversing out of there with a broken front wing.
No further investigation needed. Gasly and Hülkenberg. Anthony Davidson, let's head down to you.
So I've just been listening to Oscar Piastri's radio. They're telling him at the moment that he's matching Lewis Hamilton's lap time. So that's the fight that we need to be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, we do. And what's the gap between Hamilton and Piastri? Round about 20 seconds at the moment. Around about 30 seconds at the moment. I just wonder if the pit stop delta, so what you lose by coming in for a pit stop, Martin, is about 28. That's right. Yeah. Then Piastri has got a pit stop over Hamilton here.
Yeah. His pace has been solid, Piastri. I thought he might be, he has dipped into the 37s, but, you know, obviously his tyres have done 34 laps of this race so far. And there it is, confirmation on the screen. 28 seconds it costs you to get down the pit lane, stop, put some tyres on, and while your rivals are thrashing down the pit straight.
But I think, looking at the timing screens, if Piastri's going to pit,
the target lap will be the Plan C target lap. It'll be the lap for Plan C.
Copy. Front right, starting to struggle a bit.
He might need to pit at the end of this lap to make that stop, come out ahead of Lewis Hamilton. We'll see as Yuki Tsunoda comes into the pits. That frees up Carlos Sainz, who pitted much earlier, and Sainz up into 7th place and is currently some 22 seconds behind his teammate Charles Leclerc, who is yet to stop, and if he stopped now would come out behind his teammate. Ted, down to you.
Well, that's the thing about Charles Leclerc. He's the one who really needs some encouragement, because if Leclerc stopped now, he'd come out around the Hülkenberg-Alonso battle, where he was stopped before. Leclerc's engineer says, look, we need you to keep matching the lap times you're doing in the sort of low 38s, but it's a really difficult ask for Leclerc on 33-year-old medium tyres. Just to say that Alonso did well and truly undercut Hülkenberg. So great strategy from Aston Martin. And in fact, Alonso has now cleared Hülkenberg by some 7 seconds. So great work, Fernando Alonso.
Oscar, we're tempted to stay out. That would mean you had to overtake Hamilton after the stop. How would that be?
I'm sure it's a great idea.
He thinks, get in now and negate that need to do the overtake. Overtaking is tricky, as George Russell is proving behind Charles Leclerc here. Russell has pitted and has jumped his teammate Lewis Hamilton in the round of pit stops. Leclerc still yet to come in.
Yeah, I mean, Piastri's tyre delta would be massive because Hamilton stopped on lap 17. Remember, Sainz also went in on lap 13 it was, so they're trying to get tyres a very long way in this Grand Prix, but Piastri doesn't seem confident.
We're pulling Piastri back into our window very slowly, currently 1 second unsafe.
I think they've missed the moment, Martin. I think they've missed the moment to get Piastri in now and out ahead.
they're waiting for a safety car, aren't they, with Piastri?
Yeah.
That's what they're hoping to do. And if there isn't a safety car, this will be, by some margin, the fastest Singapore Grand Prix of all time.
It certainly would. We've been going 57 minutes so far, and we're on lap 35 out of 62. Normally by this stage, Martin, we're thinking, well, it's probably about another 40-odd laps to go here, but now we've got that taken out 4 corners. We've got a new DRS zone. Might get home in time for a cup of cocoa.
Might even catch the plane.
Lap 35 is 62 then. Gap out in front, 9 seconds. Norris over Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen currently 21 seconds behind Lando Norris, lapping about 0.3 of a second slower than the closest driver in the championship to him. As we see George Russell once again trying to get it closer to Charles Leclerc. Turn 16, he's got to go around the outside, goes off the track as Charles Leclerc decided, you are not passing me at this particular moment, and he's going to get frustrated once more.
Yeah, there are a lot of marbles sort of on the turning point, aren't there, to the last corner, for example. And Russell, quite rightly, yielding immediately. And who's that coming up behind him? It's Fernando Alonso, isn't it?
Behind Carlos Sainz, yeah. Lewis Hamilton's coming up behind George Russell, who's been rather held up here by Charles Leclerc, and it's kind of bringing Lewis Hamilton back into the game with his teammate at the moment, running in 6th place. We've lost one driver from this race, Alex Albon, with a suspected power unit, and we've seen absolutely no signs of the safety car yet. We haven't had a safety car for 8 Grand Prix. We've had a safety car at every one of the Singapore Grand Prix. Something has to give on that one tonight.
I think the drivers are in good form, aren't they? The cars are reliable. The cars stick to the road well. There's a bit of get a jail-free zone there that George Russell had to utilise.
That's what it looked, going wheel to wheel. He wasn't ahead, George Russell.
So to go around the outside, you've basically got to have your front wheel ahead of their mirror to have earned the right to any space. They are the driving standard regulations at the moment.
Yeah. I'll give you a question here, Martin. I know it's counterintuitive, but is trying to press Charles Leclerc for an overtake doing George Russell any good in the long run? Or does he need to kind of drop back a little bit, hold position, just wait for Leclerc to pit in a few laps' time?
He certainly doesn't want to trip over him, but you know he's in the 139s at the moment. That doesn't work for George. That's costing him dearly. While Leclerc tries to eke, and that's sorted out.
It will be very tight with Hulkenberg. Come on.
Hulkenberg down in 9th place and currently on his way through turn 15 down towards 16, where Leclerc held up George Russell just a couple of laps ago. On the squealing of tyres go the hard compounds. Nico Hulkenberg is just rounding the final couple of corners, 60 kilometres an hour. The pit lane speed here, one of 4 tracks with a 60 kilometres an hour pit lane speed. It's slow, but it's not quite slow enough to give Nico Hulkenberg a chance to get ahead of Charles Leclerc. So the Haas right behind the Ferrari. 2 Ferrari-powered cars here. New tyres now for Charles Leclerc. Warmed up hard tyres for Nico Hulkenberg, who was the fastest Ferrari driver during qualifying. Piastri is struggling on his tyres a bit as the DRS zone down the Raffles Boulevard can't get Nico Hulkenberg any closer.
Yeah, as they wear, they obviously start to lose temperature, and that hurts you under braking, as we saw with Lando Norris. Piastri's done well to get the tyres that far. Leclerc now can set off after Alonso and Sainz, and I think this has played out quite nicely for him once he got some free air.
Sainz pitted on lap 10. Yeah. A long time ago, and a very long time ago by the time we get to the last 10 laps of this race. I can see a scenario here where Sainz is desperately defending against Fernando Alonso, and Charles Leclerc is behind the 2 of them, thinking he can pick up some places. This is Gasly and his battle with Kevin Magnussen, and there comes Sergio Perez blasting his way through the marbles to get past the Alpine into the right-hander at the end of that 4th DRS zone, and that's where Franco Colapinto bailed out and left the track. He's been noted for leaving the track and gaining an advantage.
Yeah, I think he might be in trouble with that one. Because he immediately overtook, didn't he, down the next straight, if I'm reading that replay correctly.
So Sergio Perez now has Hulkenberg ahead of him, a gap of about 1.5 seconds. Daniel Ricciardo, who was the first driver to pit in this race, a long way behind Franco Colapinto, and you would imagine won't go to the end of the race. We'll have to pit again. And Ted, we can head down to you. 2 seconds. Yep. Ted, you've got company in the pit lane very shortly.
Pierre Gasly.
Guess who's coming in?
Pierre Gasly? Who?
No,
Pierre Gasly is coming in, I promise you.
Oh, yeah, he is. Yeah,
Oscar
you're right.
Piastri.
I was thinking more Oscar Piastri, yes.
Well, Pierre Gasly's hanging out for, just passes the McLaren mechanics right in front of me. There is the number 10 coming in. So he was goal hanging for a safety car. And it's the soft tyres. Oh, it's a slow stop. Oh, slow stop. Bad luck Alpine on the right rear. And it's the soft tyres onto Gasly. Like Tsunoda, that's a weird choice at this point in the race. But hey-ho, we'll see how it goes. But finally, Oscar Piastri makes his stop. And again, that's smart work, quick work by the McLaren guys. Very nice stop. Felt like a 2.3. I don't have it in front of me.
2.2. Our veteran reporter strikes again.
But Piastri out there on the hard tyres. He will go to the end as McLaren seek to make this a 1-2. Can Piastri do something about that?
He's jumped the 2 Mercedes. Here has Oscar Piastri with a very nice strategy that has worked out well for him. Can he get past Max Verstappen and is charged now to the end of the race? Sorry, he's not jumped the 2 Mercedes.
Yeah, he's behind both Mercedes actually at the moment, but with a massive tyre offset to Lewis Hamilton that Lewis pointed out early doors.
Absolutely, and no further investigation for Franco Colapinto, so he can breathe again. Yeah, is this strategy going to work? He's bided his time, he's preserved his tyres. Now, you haven't got that many laps to go. You go and use every single last ounce of performance out of them and see what you can come back with. Will be the instructions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting Piastri to really fly now. Norris has, what's he got, 23.5 seconds, hasn't he? Just over 23 seconds out front. He can pace himself nicely there. Got an answer to anything out there.
2 Alpines heading down the Esplanade. There is Esteban Ocon on the inside of his teammate. It's not the easiest stopping zone there because it is a little bit downhill, but it's looking very nice there for Esteban Ocon, but not looking too nice for his teammate, who's really struggling before that pit stop as Magnussen got past him. Esteban Ocon, who has retired the last 3 years here at Singapore and has only ever scored points in one race here, and that was back in 2017. Lewis Hamilton didn't like the strategy that he's been put on by the Mercedes team. I think he's going to like it even less very shortly because Oscar Piastri is right behind him now.
Yeah, I think Lewis was painted in the corner with that used soft tyres on the grid, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That didn't pay any dividends whatsoever. Brought him into the pits early. Piastri will be flying. He'll have so much more grip than Hamilton and DRS, and he needs to lunge him early. He wants to get after George Russell.
And he has done so. Hamilton made him go the long way round, but the long way round was still short enough for Piastri to get the move done and gets his first round of applause, and he's looking for a couple more as well.
He's not shy, is he, Oscar Piastri?
He is not.
Inside, outside, he'll have a go, but that now puts George Russell under a massive amount of pressure coming up.
Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso, the most experienced drivers on the grid. If you total up all their racing kilometres over their years, it's more than halfway from the Earth to the moon.
What are we waiting for?
We are discussing Yuki.
He wants to come in and pit. And whilst Hamilton couldn't do much to defend against Piastri, Alonso is giving proper defence once again here with Charles Leclerc right behind him.
No, I think what Tsunoda's saying is, why has Ricciardo not let me through? I'm on a different strategy. Why are we waiting before you move him out of the way?
Alonso has the inside line, but Charles Leclerc is far enough ahead to make that overtake. Going into turn 14, he's up into 7th place, and he's around about 4 seconds behind his teammate, Carlos Sainz, who pitted on lap 13 an awful lot earlier.
Wait!
Yuki, we need to stay calm. We need to stay calm.
It's clear.
Okay, Yuki, I'll tell you what we're doing. We close up and then we swap. We close up and then we swap.
Yeah, with the tire, dumbass.
Well, he's running close, but not right up the rear wing, and he's You're asking a lot of any driver to slow down and swap with this distance between the two cars.
But what he's saying is I'm close enough now within the sort of 3-second range. I'm damaging these soft tyres, which is already a pretty edgy, spicy sort of strategy anyway, isn't it? Put those tyres on the car in the closing stages.
If you were going into a race, Martin, with the possibility that it might be your last, especially for this season, maybe the end of your career, would you comply with any orders that were coming your way?
Yeah, I think he's obliged to do that. Luckily, I finished 5th in my last race, but I didn't know it was my last race, so I didn't have any of that misery to contend with.
We're expecting an announcement at some stage in the next few days, as Daniel Ricciardo does very much comply and let Yuki Tsunoda through at the opportune moment where he doesn't lose too much time and where Yuki Tsunoda can get DRS and get a bit of extra pace as well. So we're expecting an announcement, no official news, but the speculation is that Liam Lawson will be in that Red Bull car, that man there, for Austin and beyond. And if that happens, it's not guaranteed to be the end of Daniel Ricciardo. The word on the street is that he's still in the driver pool and he's still in contention for a seat next season.
Piastri caught Russell by a second on the previous lap, so George Russell is about to have company.
In round about 3 laps time, the papaya glowing under the lights here in the night in Singapore, and I'm sure George Russell could probably see him in his mirrors at the end of the straight. Oh, sorry, Martin.
I would say, and you do wonder, assuming Piastri can get past the Mercedes, whether he can set off after Verstappen in the closing stages as well. But it's a fairly tall order. He's 18 seconds behind Verstappen at the moment, Piastri, but with 20 laps to go. It's a tall order, but it's not out of the question. Ted, sorry.
That's right, Martin. Well, I mean, he's got the same car as Lando, hasn't he, Oscar? And Lando's currently 24 seconds ahead of Max, so I wouldn't put it past Oscar at all. I think we're about to see a bit of Ferrari strategy, team orders as well.
Swap positions, the orders come out, but it hasn't happened yet.
He needs to, if Leclerc's going to really solve anything and get anything back from this race, then Sainz needs to let him through. I think they've actually ordered him now. They've ordered him to let Charles by, haven't they, Crofty?
Yes, they have. Yeah, the instructions gone out. They're just waiting for the right time to do it. So we think. Yeah. He would overtake him anyway. He's just, I suppose Ferrari just say, make it easy. Don't stress the tyres.
That last straight would have been a good opportunity to do that, but Piastri in the 135s now. Just there we go. And we've got Leclerc low 1:36 is faster than the 2 leaders, just showing you what they could have done if they didn't have such a miserable qualifying.
Absolutely. Charles Leclerc then is round about now 15 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton with fresher tyres. We're talking about could Piastri get past Russell and chase down Verstappen. Yeah, look, they're striking distance in 10 laps. Leclerc on Lewis Hamilton with a possible top 5 finish coming his way.
Yeah, and I think if Piastri clears Russell quickly, he's got a sniff. He's got a chance of Verstappen up there in 2nd place. Anthony at Sky Race Control.
Yeah, just speaking of that fight with Russell, this imminent fight we're seeing on screen right now with Piastri closing in all the time. The last message I heard relayed to Russell was to make a switch change, which would actually, unfortunately, give him a bit more harvesting, so more D-rates, as they call it at Mercedes. That's their terminology, so it might be a bit easy.
If you keep this pace, we should catch Hamilton at the end.
I might catch him before the end, to be fair. I know it's only 1 point, but Piastri's now got the fastest lap. And Lando Norris is he's not a complete pit stop ahead, but it might be that in about 10 laps time, he's got enough pace to have a free pit stop with Max Verstappen behind him, and McLaren might think it worth pitting him and going for that extra point.
Yeah, but why would you risk that? He's not 30 seconds ahead, but why would you risk that, you know, a stuck wheel nut or a broken jack? It's a big risk for a victory against a victory for one fastest. I hear what you say, unless Norris has actually got enough pace in there to do it for himself anyway without pitting.
That's a very good point. If, by the way, Lando Norris, including this race, wins every race between now and the end of the season and takes the bonus point for the fastest lap and wins the sprint races, and Max Verstappen finishes 2nd in all of them, they'll be level on points going into the last lap in Abu Dhabi. That's why I asked the question about the bonus point.
You're absolutely right. It's critical, isn't it? But well, let's see. You're right, but he's not 30-odd seconds. You'd want to be 32 seconds clear, wouldn't you, before you took that gamble?
He might want his teammate to get a bit closer to Max Verstappen if he can as well.
Still doing high 36s out there. Is a chance of interacting very end of the race if he can keep that pace up.
Stand by for some interaction. Don't go anywhere. Yes, here comes Oscar Piastri, right behind George Russell. He's got those fresher tyres, has Oscar Piastri, pitted on lap 38. It was 27, lap 27 for George Russell. Here comes Piastri, but not enough to get past.
You get that sort of concertina effect, and the driver in front is always going to be on the throttle a car length or so earlier than you, and pulls away. You're sliding around in his turbulent air as well. And now Piastri's got some work to do. As you can see, the Mercedes harvesting electrical power, presumably to deploy that down one of the straights where it's really going to help him defend.
I think he's going to need it in a couple of turns' time as they turn right-handed at 88 miles an hour onto the Raffles Boulevard, where you'll approach the top speed in this race of just over 190 miles an hour. DRS assisting Oscar Piastri on his way. Once again, he's going to have to go the long way round, and once again, he does go the long way round, and George Russell tries to fight that out, but to the cheers of the crowds who line the streets down there in the packed grandstands, Piastri has got past. I tell you what, it's like a second home race for Australian motorsport fans. Singapore, we're what, 5 hours from Perth, and not that much further from Melbourne, Sydney as well. A lot of Aussies in town, they'll love that move.
Piastri has put a lot of faith in both Mercedes drivers in that turn 7, but he knows he can do that. They don't want to lose their front wing with a nothingy incident, but Russell was quite kind to him there, but I don't think he got any choice, frankly. Piastri is so much faster. So 1 and 3 now for Mercedes. Can Piastri get after Max Verstappen?
Well, that is going to be the charge, isn't it, now for Oscar Piastri. Ted, down to you.
Talk about Max Verstappen. He is doing a really, really good job. A 36.4 last time round, now a 36.6. You contrast that with Perez, his teammate, in the same car, a 37.7. So over a second per lap slower is Perez. And Checo's trying as much as he can, but he can't get past Nico Hülkenberg. He's in P10, and it's these kind of performances from Checo where he's stuck behind cars or just doesn't have the pace that's meaning that McLaren will again today extend their Constructors' Championship lead, won't they, Crofty? Especially if Piastri can get up close. What is he, 18 seconds behind Verstappen now, and maybe even challenging him in the next, whatever, 15, 18 laps we've got left. But Checo really struggling. Look at it the other way. Hülkenberg doing a great job holding up Perez in the Red Bull.
I think Hülkenberg's driven a super race today in that Haas, and reaping the benefits of a good qualifying as well. And don't discount Franco Colapinto from joining this battle at the end if Hülkenberg continues to hold Sergio Perez up. Looking at the sector times, Max Verstappen, as Ted's saying, doing a super job. Is he matching Lando Norris or going a little bit faster than Lando Norris at times the last couple of laps? Norris has just put in a 1:35.9, which is his best lap of the race so far. The reason why Verstappen would want to keep matching that is to stop any possibility of Norris thinking about another pit stop, but also to keep that Red Bull ahead of the charging Oscar Piastri, putting a 1:36.5.
Yeah, at 1:35.
The tyres are looking very good, Nico, very good.
At 1:35.9, that's only 3/10 of fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far for Lando Norris. So it's not out of the question. He could, in the last lap or two, with low fuel, have a go at stealing that point as well.
Well, we've seen it, haven't we, already this season, where he's taken that fastest lap bonus point on the last lap in Zandvoort when he won the race. Bonus point going to Charles Leclerc and to Ferrari at the moment, but let's focus in on this battle.
Right here, mate.
I think it's more like a steam room if I was ever going to pick holes in that one, George. It's the humidity in the air, but if you've ever imagined running on the spots and holding a few weights in your hands while doing some jogging on the spot in a steam room, that is like the Singapore Grand Prix for a driver. That's Daniel Ricciardo, who sees Esteban Ocon down the inside, and then Kevin Magnussen straight away.
Charlie Leclerc just took 2.4 seconds out of Lewis Hamilton on the previous lap.
That's Lando Norris. Did he hit the wall here? He did. Oh, you remember George Russell hit the wall on the other side of the track last year? Well, Lando has just hit the wall on the right-hand side. Let's go back to that in a couple of moments. This is Ricciardo really struggling on his tyres out there. And Lance Stroll getting past in the Aston Martin. Ricciardo has now pitted.
Yeah, there's a little right kink into that turn. And it into the turn 10, and it catches them out. And that's a second lucky escape if he hasn't done any damage to the wheel rim, tyre or transmission there for Lando Norris.
Yeah, the first production, mate. Are you bouncing like a kangaroo? Copy that. Keep your head down. Do what you can.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a glancing blow, was it? That was a thump on that corner of the wall.
But I wonder, look, we're lap 48 out of 62, Martin. This is where the physical energy starts to really interfere with the mental precision and energy as well. This is where those little lapses are understandable and do happen.
Yeah, and you're right. That's very little more than that took Russell out of the race last year. So Hulkenberg doing a good job keeping Perez at bay. 9th and 10th, the last 2 points, paying positions there. Not too far behind Fernando Alonso either. But what have we got them? Piastri 3/10 quicker than Verstappen previous lap. And Norris does the fastest lap of the race, so he didn't hit the wall that hard, did he? And that's moved it quite well clear at a 34.9 as well.
Yeah.
Another championship point in his pocket for now.
I just wonder if you need a moment like that, just as a driver, and you can tell me because you've raced in some very atrocious races, just to, not to wake you up, but just to refocus you at a moment where the body is crying out for a sit down and a cup of tea.
Yeah, and yes, it does, and I think it's especially hard for Lando with such a comfortable lead. It's so easy to let your concentration lapse as your body is just crying out. You've got so much core temperature. He's probably run out of water out there, and the laps will not go fast enough for him now.
He's just been told on the team radio, full concentration, Lando, take a drink.
Yeah.
I would imagine whatever he's got in his drink pack is absolutely boiling hot by now.
Yeah, it needs a tea bag in it, that's for sure. There's nothing worse than drinking hot energy drink, squirting it down the back of your throat.
Oh, delightful. Almost.
Okay, so full concentration now, take a drink.
There you go, Will Joseph with the message to Lando Norris. Yeah, drinking a roasting hot energy drink, probably about the same sort of feeling that Sergio Perez is getting. You know, just not the most pleasant position to be in, and he's not in a very pleasant position because Nico Hulkenberg's still doing a brilliant job in holding him up, and now Franco Colapinto is right on the tail of that one. And talking of on the tail, here comes Charles Leclerc, who's right on the tail of Lewis Hamilton. And we've seen this before at the Singapore Grand Prix, which can be a slow burner sometimes, but the last 10 laps with an offsetting tyre strategy, with fatigue setting in with the drivers in the hot, oppressive conditions. Action is all around, mistakes can happen and things can change in the blink of an eye.
I think it definitely was a wake-up lap, wasn't it, for Lando? He scolded himself. He's had 2 lucky escapes now. Don't try and make it 3.
At the moment, he's on for the win, the pole, the fastest lap, and leading every lap as well, which would be a Grand Slam and would be his first Grand Slam in Formula One. And in terms of wins, it would be his 3rd of the season so far. The only driver other than Max Verstappen to win at least 3 Grand Prix this season. Charles Leclerc is absolutely blasting towards Lewis Hamilton here. Kevin Magnussen is feeling the opposites because he's got a puncture as he hit the wall, I wonder. Where is Kevin Magnussen on the track? He's down at turn 8. And that's a long way to go to bring that Haas home, if he can bring it home without shredding too much debris from the tyre onto the track. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton are heading down Raffles Boulevard. Magnussen at the moment heading towards turn 10. We're heading towards turn 7. Here goes Charles Leclerc down the inside on Lewis Hamilton. Did not fight that. 1 iota Lewis Hamilton because he realised he couldn't, given the performance in tyres to Charles Leclerc's advantage. There was nothing really Hamilton could do about that. Leclerc is up into the top 5. Kevin Magnussen continues to limp around here as he makes his way to turn 13. I'm wondering, I can't see, Martin, tyre debris on the track.
Well, the tyre looked intact, didn't it? So as long as he doesn't drive too quickly, he shouldn't start shredding the tread of that, and he is driving very slowly. There'll be white flags waving everywhere to say slow car ahead, and yeah, and he's hit the wall on the exit of turn 5, I'm told. So that's literally, he's probably just taken the tyre off the rim, or actually broken the bead on the rim. There's turn 5. Wow, that wasn't much of a hit, was it?
No, it wasn't, but it's enough to... we heard it.
Yeah.
Felt it, moved the wall a touch. Bang. It hit it a bit harder than it first looked.
And he's immediately lost pressure in that tyre, so it's just literally taken the bead off the rim, or more likely broken the tyre rim.
Ted, down to you.
The Ferrari mechanics have come out into pit lane. I think they're just covering what could be a safety car. To be fair, Ferrari mechanics have been...
How are these tyres for a restart? Question?
I will probably stop. I think everybody would stop if there was a safety car restart. Yeah, to be fair, the Ferrari mechanics have been in and out of that pit box more often than I've been in and out of an ice bath this weekend. So, yeah, as it happens, they don't need a safety car because good old Kevin Magnussen, with a deflated left rear, has actually made it past me back into the pits.
Excellent. And will be stopping on his marks, or as near to his marks as he possibly can. And let's see if they can get the car back out again. Soft compound tyres, Martin, going on to Kevin Magnussen's Haas. Kevin Magnussen, who in 2018 and 2019 set the fastest lap here. His and Haas's only fastest laps in a Grand Prix. And with 10 laps to go, he's got a set of soft compound tyres on, which are new.
Yeah, so what he can do,
for Magnussen?
He can't score a point unless he's in the top 10, but he could stop Norris scoring the fastest lap point. Is the pivotal thing here, isn't it? You're not allowed. You don't get the point if you're not in the top 10 at the end of the race.
I have understeer and I have oversteer.
You've got a bit of everything there, George, which is not a position you want to be in. That's not going to give you balance. What I would say, if Magnussen does go for the fastest lap, Lando Norris is once again getting into a position where he could pit and come out again and keep the lead, and might fancy getting that bonus point back again. And isn't that the wonderful thing about the bonus point for a fastest lap? We're having this discussion. They'll be having the discussion down at Woking in Mission Control, and it just puts a little strategic element into the end of a race.
Yeah, do you remember, was it was Piastri's McLaren earlier on the weekend where the rear wheel nut stuck on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, all that sort of thing's in your mind, but at the same time, you got to go for broke. But you know, they've got a comfortable victory here available to them. So let's see what they decide to do. But you're right, he is. I mean, incredibly, Norris is virtually a pit stop ahead of Verstappen now. And
Verstappen driving well here. You know, to keep that Red Bull in second place.
Just gets the wall. Take it all fine. We're right.
Hey, Phil. Pressure's looking good at the moment.
Yeah, just have a look for me, just in case. Verstappen driving very well indeed, and that threat of Oscar Piastri charging after him, I think, has dissipated. That's gone away now.
And what they haven't had in this race is any kind of respite with a safety car, virtual safety car, red flag or whatever. It's been relentless, and there'll be a few drivers out there just struggling to keep focus, to keep the concentration.
Previous longest, I think it was lap 36 was the longest, or lap 35 was the longest we'd ever gone without a safety car here in Singapore, and we're on lap 53 now, so it's an awful lot of time without a respite. in conditions that you really wouldn't want to be doing too much physical exercise, trust me. Ted, down to you.
You're not wrong, Martin Crofty. You're never wrong, in fact, but you're not wrong about Oscar Piastri. In fact, the gap to Max Verstappen has now grown from 16 to 17, now 18 seconds last time round. So I think the McLaren pit wall are just advising Oscar just to bring it home from here, despite him having much younger tyres than the Red Bull ahead. But Crofty, do you know who's most impressed me today in this
Russell
race?
P1, 36.6.
What do you mean Russell P1?
I meant Norris, but I didn't want to speak in the corners.
I don't care about Norris, give me Russell.
Yeah, to be fair, Lando Norris is not the guy who's racing, but Ted, carry on.
Yeah, the person who's impressed me is not George Russell, who can have understeer and oversteer at the same time, yet still drive a Formula One car very quickly, nor Lando Norris, who's now almost 30 seconds in front of Max Verstappen's Red Bull. It's Colapinto, Franco Colapinto, who has not had the break of a safety car, like you've just been saying, and has remained absolutely on it from a great start, has held on to Sergio Perez in front of him, is only 1.7 seconds off scoring another point for Williams around an unforgiving street circuit. Hats off to Franco Colapinto.
Yeah, vamos, Frankie. Kevin Magnussen has just set a new fastest lap of the race. As predicted, Ted Kravitz, if they move in that McLaren garage and get ready to come out, let us know. Martin.
Yeah, that's a conundrum now for McLaren, isn't it? They're 29 seconds ahead. They've just about got a pit stop in their pocket. They will have in another couple of laps.
You've seen on the track there, from the advertising, from the wrap that they put round some of these concrete barriers, with the cars going close to the wall, it's ripped off some of that plastic wrapping. I think it's off the racing line at the moment, but you wouldn't want it to float up into the air and get stuck in an air intake.
No, absolutely. We saw some of that at Monaco as well, didn't we? Yeah. With the advertising coming off the barriers.
Just chill out, bring this car home.
There's your answer.
Yeah, not going to pit. It's nearly 30 seconds. I wonder if Lando have been on the radio to ask about the fastest lap and to see if they needed to go for it.
They probably wouldn't tell him. But they don't need him trying to banzai a lap, do they? Hot and bothered, and a lot of marbles around, and tyres a little bit second-hand.
Sergio Perez, we're watching from the front wing. This is what it feels like to race behind the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg for lap after lap after lap. And Franco Colapinto, after dropping back behind this battle, I think just to recharge his batteries for a couple of laps, is ever moving closer. He's 1.5 seconds behind Perez now. And then on the main footage, there's Charles Leclerc, who is around about 9/10 of a second a lap quicker than George Russell, and has got that gap down to about 3 seconds. And there is definitely time for George Russell to get some defending done, and for Charles Leclerc to try and get some overtaking done before we see the checkered flag.
What did Ferrari say to us earlier today? From where they are, unless something strange happens in front of them, they hoped to get to 6th and 7th. They're 5th and 7th at the moment, the two Ferraris, but that is the cost of qualifying.
Carlos Sainz might yet find himself under a bit of pressure, though, from Fernando Alonso. If you remember, Sainz stopped fairly early in this race on lap 13, and Alonso on lap 25. That's a 12 laps difference in the offset there, and Alonso's got that gap down to under 3 seconds. He's just set his personal best fastest lap. Is Sergio Perez going to go for it? For one moment, he absolutely thought about it and then realised he was a bit too far back.
So, depending on how hard Norris pushes now, but this gang could well have the leader, and they have to get out of the way for the leader coming up behind them to lap them.
Lando Norris set the fastest lap again. He has 1:34.9. He has just taken a new fastest lap in this race.
No, so then Magnussen must have lost his.
I think it was deleted.
Yeah, it was deleted. Yeah, it was deleted because that 34.9 is what he did before, and it's slower than Magnussen did. So Magnussen obviously went off the track, turn 2, track limits. It was deleted. So point back in Lando Norris's pocket.
He's having all the good luck today. Is Lando Norris twice brushing the wall, losing a fastest lap, and then getting it back without even having to go any faster himself. certainly turning into a very fine night for the McLaren driver. And as it stands, he will reduce Max Verstappen's lead in the championship from 59 points. And he'll reduce that down by 8 points to 51, heading towards Austin next time out.
That's an incredible stat that, despite all the success they've had, Norris has taken 1 point out of Verstappen since Imola back in May.
Right.
Back in May, was that Imola? So it feels like it's been more than that, doesn't it? But
it does. But there've been challenges.
Yeah.
Mercedes had that great run just before the summer break. McLaren have been there or thereabouts, but Verstappen through it all has picked up the maximum amount of points that were available that weekend in a car that hasn't always been the fastest. Perez looks to me like he is getting closer to Hülkenberg, and certainly Colapinto is getting much closer to Perez as well. And what about George Russell and Charles Leclerc? That gap is now down to about
just a reminder how tricky the following effect is. Oscar struggled going through 3 cars. Be careful.
Is he going to lap someone? Oh,
yeah, he's coming up to lap a pile of people, as I mentioned. Colapinto, Perez, Alonso, and Hülkenberg's in there as well, isn't he?
And I wonder if Piastri not catching Verstappen, a lot of that's down to the traffic he's had to go through. Gasly and Joe and Bottas as well just recently. But yet Lando Norris is right behind now. Colapinto, he's just about to lap him. And then Perez is about to get lapped by Lando Norris, and then Hülkenberg ahead of them. And it might be that he can get to Fernando Alonso as well. Alonso now, 2.4 seconds behind Carlos Sainz.
Lando in traffic, but as you go past Colapinto, he's in the 37s and 38s recently. He needs to be careful he doesn't let those tyres cool down too much. Needs to keep on it, but that's taken Colapinto right off the back of Perez.
When you move out of the way with these blue flags, obviously you get onto the marbles, you get off the racing line, and that might have just happened to the youngest driver in the field, the man from Argentina, because he's dropped back by about 2 and a bit seconds. Now, this doesn't surprise me at all that Lando Norris is currently leading the driver of the day. He has very much been the fans' favourite throughout this season.
It might be a little farewell and thank you there to Daniel, isn't there?
Yeah. I wouldn't be at all upset if Daniel Ricciardo got driver of the day today. If this is to be his last, he doesn't get that chance to say farewell in Abu Dhabi. I'm kind of with Ted Kravitz on this one. A real shame.
We do have Norris behind. We're getting flashing blues at present. Let's be sensible where we let him through. Come on, keep pushing.
Well, he's obliged, isn't he, Sergio Perez? He's not. He can't hold Lando Norris up for any more. Is it 3
marshals posts? Yeah, and you get a warning as well when you get within 3 seconds of the car, when he's within 3 seconds of catching you to lap you. And here then is Leclerc on the gearbox of George Russell.
Yep, warning shots to George Russell. Not that he needs them, that the Scarlet Ferrari is right behind him. And the battle for 4th place is down to whether he can defend for the next 4 laps or so. This is Lando Norris lapping Franco Colapinto, and look at that. When lapping Colapinto there, he went a bit deep into the corner. Nothing too serious there, but doesn't want to do that too often.
He's having a few adventures, isn't he, in what is one of the most dominant displays we've seen in Formula 1 for a long time.
But it shows you, though, Martin, how dusty it gets offline here.
Yeah.
I felt it's been quite dusty on the track, despite, the high-pressure wash that they put on it all weekend long. It's just good stuff here from George Russell. He's keeping Charles Leclerc at bay on this particular lap. He's gone through all 4 DRS zones, and still he's holding on to that 4th place. As we watch from the rear of the Mercedes, Charles Leclerc has spent a long time in this race, tucked up behind various drivers. He's had to work very, very hard for what is his current 5th place.
The tyre delta, as we like to impress ourselves with, the delta difference, 9 laps. Leclerc tyres are 9 laps younger than George Russell's.
and that should help him. Is he going to make a move here? No. George Russell hasn't got the DRS advantage that Charles Leclerc has, because Leclerc's behind him, but he'll be using the electrical energy, the ERS system, and deploying it in places where Charles Leclerc gets DRS to try and neutralise the effect of that rear wing opening.
And why bother to try and go up the inside of 8? It just lost him a bit of a few metres there, Charles Leclerc.
But he's sticking as best he can over the Anderson Bridge there, down the inside potentially at turn 13 to George Russell. Maybe trying to catch George Russell a little bit by surprise there and go for an overtake in the part of the track where you don't normally see it. This is a little bit more usual from a DRS zone. If he can just hang on round that right-hander at turn 14, is there a move coming down the next DRS zone? I think George Russell got a really good exit out of that corner, and he keeps Leclerc at bay.
He does. Verstappen in the 135s now, but that's still a second off fastest lap, so he's not threatening fastest lap of Lando Norris.
Norris leads from Verstappen, from Piastri, and we have seen some close finishes in this season so far. But we're not seeing a close one at the moment. There's about 42 seconds in between the top three, as Kevin Magnussen, back after missing Baku, is in the pit lane again, Ted.
Well, Magnussen is, but more to the point, Daniel Ricciardo is as well. A third stop for Daniel Ricciardo. Don't go out like this, Danny Rick, with a 3-stop when everybody else is doing a 1.
No, Ted, I think I know what's happening here.
What's happening here?
Has he put a set of soft tyres on?
No, he already had a set of pretty knackered soft tyres on.
But I wonder, is Daniel Ricciardo going to take? Is he going to take the fastest lap in what could be his final Grand Prix?
Yeah, but 18th.
Yeah, but
it won't take a point. He could take a fastest lap.
Could take a fastest lap.
And crucially, he would take a fastest lap away from McLaren as Kylie Minogue gets ready to wave the checkered flag. Cue all amount of puns from Martin Brundle, who is the honorary member of the Kings Lynn Kylie Minogue fan club, I believe.
Indeed. My favourite grid walk interviewee, Kylie Minogue. Anyway, Charles Leclerc keeps sort of feigning up the inside of the wrong corners.
They have a very good traction again.
He needs to try and catch George Russell out here, try and surprise him some way, because the usual overtaking spots at the end of a DRS zone, George Russell seems to have it nicely covered. Good driving from George Russell to maintain this 4th place.
Yeah, I mean, the Ferrari's massively faster, we can see that. And Alonso now just 1.8 behind Sainz. He'll run out of laps, won't he? But he's definitely kept the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz very honest, as Fernando Alonso.
Here we go again. I think Leclerc's a little bit closer out of turn 5, but the straight line speed of the Mercedes is keeping Charles Leclerc at bay once more. This is without doubt the closest battle on the track currently, as our race leader Lando Norris starts his final lap of the race. Lando Norris, who started from pole here this afternoon and completed for the first time lap 1 from pole, still in the lead. He has led every single lap. He's got the fastest lap currently as well, and he is on his way to a perfect night out on the streets of Singapore, and he's got round about 12 corners to go, and that is what the performance will do to the championship lead, and they'll be 51 points behind by the time we get to Austin.
Ricciardo fastest in the first sector. This will spoil McLaren's perfection if he takes that fastest lap away.
It certainly will. The Grand Slam is on for Norris, bowing out in style for Daniel Ricciardo, or as much style as he can possibly muster with another fastest lap of his racing career. Lando Norris out of turn 13 has a few more corners to go as George Russell starts his last lap in defence against Charles Leclerc. In between these two, Piastri Piastri and Verstappen will be completing the podium places, but there is the race leader, the man who has walked in on Thursday into the paddock with an air of confidence and a strut that said, these streets, this town, this could be my town, and this could be my moment. And just like he did in Zandvoort, Lando Norris has laid down a statement win here in Singapore tonight. Lando Norris wins the Singapore Grand Prix, and once again he wins by a distance. It is the third Grand Prix win of the season for Lando Norris. It is not the fastest lap, though. Daniel Ricciardo has got that in what could be his final race. Max Verstappen will come home to take second place to spoil the McLaren 1-2 and to keep as much of a charge going in his championship defence.
Ricciardo, of course, in the sister Red Bull team, has gone out and stolen a point off McLaren.
And whether that's crucial or not, by the time we get to Abu Dhabi, we'll see how it plays out. Oscar Piastri, it's another podium in Formula One for the young Australian. One last time out in Baku. It's a 9th podium in Formula One here tonight. And George Russell will come home as the lead Mercedes. Charles Leclerc fighting him all the way to the line. Great defence from Russell as he takes 4th place ahead of the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton will come home in 6th. The start on soft tyres really didn't help him. Carlos Sainz 7th, and then Alonso, Hülkenberg and Perez completing the points here tonight. And in terms of making a point, he has. Lando Norris wins again.
Mate. Good job.
Yeah, lovely job. Amazing car weekend. Thank you very much, everyone. One of many more. Let's keep pushing.
That was a champion's drive, wasn't it, from Lando Norris? Absolutely superb.
Fireworks, as is traditional here around this Marina Bay circuit, to illuminate the parts of the night sky where the lights over the track don't touch. And nobody could touch Lando Norris here tonight. That said, though, I think that is a fine drive from Max Verstappen, not just here in the race, Martin, but in qualifying yesterday, to put it on the front row. He's not giving up this title without a fight, and that was a real fight this weekend in the car.
Yeah, well done, Max. You got every ounce of performance out of that today, so yeah, 8 points down to Lando. So you've driven a very strong weekend.
And your old pal Daniel picked up a fastest lap at the end as well, mate.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, he's quickly understood the significance of that, hasn't he? You're right, it was a tremendous performance from Verstappen. The car's been reluctant, and somehow he still made it talk.
Well, Yuki Tsunoda could have picked up a fastest lap. Sergio Perez probably couldn't have picked up a fastest lap because they couldn't pit him. He would have lost 10th place. Daniel Ricciardo, they had nothing to lose by pitting him to go for that fastest lap. And I wonder, as a driver in the Red Bull pool, where that call came from to pit to the end to take the fastest lap, because it could be crucial. It might not be, but it could be crucial at the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if there's 1 point in it.
Yes, let's go. P3. Well done, mate. Really good.
Thank you. Well done on the strategy. Worked out nice. And enjoy a little break.
Yeah. I mean, it was an interesting strategy, wasn't it? It looked like they were running him very, very long, but Piastri's pace after that made the difference.
They gave him the free air, didn't they, to exploit it. He managed his pace really well in the early stages, Oscar Piastri, to be able to do the lap times he needed long after everyone had pitted around him. Lando Norris climbs on top of his car. Wouldn't imagine he's got a huge amount of energy left to celebrate wildly with the team.
Zach Brown there. He's done a super job for McLaren, hasn't he?
Certainly
the team been hella back, haven't they, with the Honda engine they had for a while, didn't they? And then they went to Renault, and then to Mercedes. They struggled. They were last in the championship at the start of last year, and they've really turned it around. And some.
Started going upwards, onwards, ever since Austria last year with that first raft of upgrades, and they've not slackened off the pace. And it's Look, it's lovely for the sport to see McLaren in such rude health, and it's great for us all watching it to see a team take the fight to Red Bull, and then another team come and join the fight, and then on their day another team come and join the fight too. And it's a four-way battle from week to week to week. But tonight there was a big distance between Norris and Verstappen, and Norris, Verstappen, Piastri, and the rest. That's the car that I think they all want to be in at the moment.
Yeah, and obviously different aero configuration to all the shenanigans we heard about at the weekend with rear wings on McLarens and some talk. They point fingers at each other. It's all part of the game. It's all part of the game. You've got to slow your rivals down and you've got to speed yourself up.
Very true. And that's the first Singapore Grand Prix then that we have never had a safety car at, which means for the 9th race in a row, no safety car. It was already the longest run, I think, since Monza 04 to Imola 05. Smiles from Oscar Piastri after that podium. They all go and get weighed at the end of this race, and the drivers estimate that they lose somewhere around 5 kilos during the course of 62 laps of the Singapore Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean, Russell, top Mercedes, over a minute behind. Hamilton, 85 seconds behind. The last driver not lapped, Carlos Sainz, in 7th place. And he was only 3 seconds from being lapped.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I hope Lando's got his breath back and he's got enough energy to have a chat. And looks like David Coulthard, former McLaren driver himself, of course, has a microphone in his hand, waiting to speak to our race winner for this evening, our runner-up and our third-place driver too. It's been another weekend for reflection for Max Verstappen. Shenanigans in FIA press conferences, community service orders from the governing body of the sport, reactions to it. But I think where he cares the most is what happens on the track, and whilst he did the best he could, he had no answer.
So 6 Grand Prix, 3 sprints to go, plenty of action to come. It's going to be close, isn't it, if it carries on like this? But you'd have to say Max is very much, well, Lando said it is, Max is to lose.
Yep.
And I think tonight rather confirms that.
David Coulthard, as I said, has the microphone in his hand.
Oscar, after what was challenging qualifying, a really feisty race, some great overtakes and a well-deserved podium. Congratulations. Put us in the cockpit. How was it?
Warm is how it was. No, it was a good race, a good recovery from qualifying yesterday. It wasn't my my greatest afternoon yesterday, so to get back to the podium is a great result. I feel like we had a really quick car underneath us and a good strategy to get past the Mercedes. So yeah, big thank you to the team. Clearly the car was exceptional this weekend, and some great points for the whole team.
We saw your teammate having a couple of brushes with the walls. I didn't see any for you, but did you have any particular standout moments of difficulty during that race?
No, I think I kept it off him this time. I don't think I hit anything. Yeah, it was a bit close with George at turn 1, but no, once I got into third, you know, I had a massive gap to try and close up, so I didn't want to take too many risks. But yeah, I feel like I've brushed enough walls in the last 2 weeks, so hopefully the mechanics don't have to change too many bits before next race.
Okay, well, Oscar, well done. Enjoy the podium celebration.
Thank you.
And then now our second place finisher, Max Verstappen. The sweat on your brow shows just how hard you had to work in that Grand Prix. Lando was in another class this race. Tell us, your Grand Prix, you had a difficult start, very close with Lewis at the first corner, and thereafter it was a fairly lonely race.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much my race, just by myself. Yeah, trying to do the best I could, trying to manage my own pace to the end. I think the first stint was a bit difficult for us, quite a bit of tire degradation. The second stint was a bit better. I was a bit more comfortable as well. So Yeah, that's, I think on a weekend where we knew that we were going to struggle to be P2 is a good achievement. Of course, we're not happy with second. Now we just have to try and improve more and more, and that's what we'll try to do.
With Daniel Ricciardo getting the fastest lap right at the end, that meant that the point swing is now 52 points, where it could have been 51. It's being ebbed away, your championship lead.
Yeah, it is, but this also can change very quickly again, so we just need to keep on trying, keep to, of course, at one point try to overturn it a bit, not always finishing behind, but we'll see how that goes.
And physically, we can see the sweat on your brow, I presume you're soaked through. Just how tough was that race?
It's always tough around here, warm, and a very long race in general, so I'm looking forward to a bit of rest.
Okay, well, enjoy that and enjoy the podium. And finally, our race winner in what looked like a dominant victory. Lando, congratulations.
Thank you. It was an amazing race. A few too many close calls. I had a couple little moments in the middle, but was well controlled, I think, otherwise. And no, the car was mega, so I could push. We were flying the whole race, and yeah, at the end could just chill. So it was a nice race, still tough. I'm a bit out of breath, but a very fun one.
But you definitely earned your money today. The gap you had, though, did put our hearts in our mouths when we saw you have two brushes with the wall, an overshoot in one of the corners where you just touched the front wing, and then you had a little tap as well of the barrier. Did you need to be pushing that hard, given the gap that you had?
I mean, it's not that you're necessarily over-pushing. Sometimes it can be that you're just chilling too much. Maybe it's a bit of both. I don't know what it is, but it's tricky. It was still tough out there, easy to lock the tires like I did, so I still pushed. I didn't want to have a 1 second lead. I wanted to have the biggest lead possible, so it was good fun, maximum points. Nice to have Oscar here too on the podium. He drove well today, so a good day for the team also.
So your third victory in Formula One, physically your toughest?
Similar to Qatar last year, but I mean, I wasn't taking it easy. I could have taken it a lot more easy, so yeah, a little dizzy at the minute, but all good.
All good. Oh, well, Lando, it's fantastic victory. I think I might have a solution if you're feeling dizzy.
Oh, no.
You feeling better? I'll take a hug from a winner. Congratulations, Lando. Enjoy the podium.
To be honest, that is not the worst thing David Coulthard could do for anyone. If he's got any more water, he might want to be chucking it over some more drivers, because clearly an exhausting Singapore Grand Prix tonight, not just without a safety car, the 15th running of the Singapore Grand Prix, but also the first one we've ever had without a yellow flag as well.
Extraordinary, isn't it? That, yeah, no incidents. Those that did clout the wall managed to carry on and either recover to the pits or just survive it all. And, yeah, that was a super dominant performance, though, wasn't it? But he actually looks the hottest of the three on the podium, doesn't he? I know what he means with that dizziness. It's sort of as the heat sort of seems to well up in you somehow when you stop.
You go kind of a bit cooler, but you know your body's on fire a touch.
Yeah. You can't get away from your own body, basically.
Hopefully this is the ice cool down route tonight, because they need something cool. And driver of the day, Daniel Ricciardo, brilliant.
Not too bad, to be honest. I've backed myself a bit here. Well, George helped me too, it looks like, but it wasn't too bad. It was more when I got to all the traffic again. Yeah, that's close. When I got to all the traffic again, it was a mess.
Is that one?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think the second stint was not too bad.
Yeah.
For us, first stint was at one stage I thought he's gonna lap me.
Oh, I did that exactly the same. You did that?
Yeah.
Nice.
Every lap. No, it's just there were so many marbles were flying.
Yeah.
When you ever took a back marker or something, it's...
K-Mate got a puncture right in front of me, so I had to go around the outside of turn 10 for the next like 3 laps.
Shit.
Oh my god.
No way. Should have released a brake a little bit. I actually shit myself.
So without using swear words, how did you feel when you did that moment?
Did you produce a little funky? Oh, funky.
Oh, that was a lot closer than I thought it was. I nearly spun after the line at turn 1.
Some great interaction between the two drivers. If you heard any language that you didn't enjoy, apologies for that. What I would never apologise for is Max Verstappen saying, I thought you were going to lap me. I thought that was quite funny. And the reaction of Max to watching Lando's brush with the wall, or near brush with the wall, for the first time.
Yeah, it's great to hear all their adventures, isn't it? And the problems that they encounter with marbles and stuff that we don't get to see or fully appreciate. But Max and Lando are on the same jet home, aren't they? They've certainly arrived on the same jet, so that'll be quite the party tonight, especially with a bit of a break to the next Grand Prix.
Yes, quite. A few weeks to go. Now, McLaren are on a decent run in 2024, we know that. 18 podiums now they've scored this season, the most by any constructor. And this is the 14th race in a row that you've seen a McLaren driver, or at least one, on a Grand Prix podium. It's Oscar Piastri, still the only driver to complete every racing lap this season as well, 1,083 so far. Max Verstappen on the podium for his second time in the last 6 races. And for Lando Norris, well, he's finally managed it, not just to win from pole, but to lead the first lap from pole as well. So we can stop talking about that one as a possible jinx for the future. 7th, 4th, 2nd, and now 1st, progressively finishing. Industrial win that was for him and for McLaren this evening. Medals handed out as well for the winning drivers by the FIA. Constructors' Trophy. And another one to add to the trophy cabinets at Woking at the McLaren Technology Centre. If you've ever been there, you go down the boulevard, past some of the old classic cars, and then before you can get anywhere near the staff restaurant, there are the trophy cabinet. So all the employees every single day walk past all the trophies that have been handed out. It's quite a morale-boosting thing. Max Verstappen celebrates his birthday next week. He'll be 27 years of age in about 8 days' time, so next weekend. And Oscar Piastri, no longer the youngest driver on the grid. Franco Colapinto has that honour. 23-year-old from Melbourne, now with his 9th podium in Formula One. A double podium finish there.